Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Let's see who's on the show on the stream tonight. Let me have a look in chat. If I can get it up. Here we go. Mandy is here. Great to see you, Mandy. Raven 1983 Witch is on. Pineapple, great to see you. Stefan is here. We also have Enzo the God. Great to see you once again. Frederick. We also have Artibos. Great to see you. Who else have we got? Michael. Great to see you, Michael. Another Michael. Kai is here. Chatty Rat, great to see you. Killer, thank you for moderating once again. CGM is here, thanks for moderating too. Who else have we got? Bill Silver, great to see you, Bill. Hope you're fine. Freckle Punny is here. We have Awesome Bricks, cool. Suzanne, great to see you. Reagan Elite, fellow YouTuber, great to have you on. Hope you're well. Peter is on. We have Kristi, great to see you. Wake Up and Smell the Rosemaries, or Wake Up and Smell the Coffee. Shane, great to see you. Sam, and so many more. Hope you're all very well. I hope you had a nice weekend and you're ready for some more crazy stuff this week. And of course, Donald Trump is imposing tariffs once again, it seems, which means more crazy stuff. KP is here. Unquiet Badger, great to see you too. So let's start off. Well, there are a few stories we want to cover tonight. Of course, reform. We'll get to a reform idiot in a moment. The DWP, a terrible story with the DWP. We also have the tariffs, of course, situation in Gaza, and NATO demanding more spending on the UK side. Politics Social, great to see you, and great to see some people coming over from there. Hope you're all very well. Suzanne, great to see you. Sarah, we also have Jacob, great to have you on, and so many more. So I want to start off with this story first. It's about steel and tariffs. So number 10 sounds unsure if UK may be hit by Trump's steel tariffs after all. Donald Trump is good for nothing, if not causing uncertainty in the markets, and his latest vow to impose 50% tariffs on steel entering America from tomorrow has only added to that. So tomorrow he's going to impose new tariffs, it seems, of 50%, because he wanted countries to come and negotiate something with him, negotiate a deal, and that hasn't really happened. So he's like, oh, okay, what we're going to do is impose these tariffs. So you recall that last month, Keir Starmer did a deal with the president that would exempt Britain from steel tariffs, but now Downing Street seems unsure whether the agreement stands. And this is the crux of the problem, is unsure. How can you be sure about anything with Donald Trump? And this is the thing we keep saying. Donald Trump will say, yeah, I'll get rid of the tariffs. And then the very next day, he's putting the tariffs back on again. Tariffs, Taco Tuesday. That said Peter. Brad, thank you so much for that super chat. Trump will eat tacos and soil himself again. Well said. Thanks for that. Butter Hat Man, great to see you on the stream tonight. Trip. Oh my God, you look so much thinner than I imagined. Your Politics Social sent me here too, but I listened to your videos. That's great. Great to have you on, Trip. I think I lost a little bit of weight. I wasn't feeling well recently, and I think I lost a little bit of weight. But I trimmed the beard a little bit, so that makes me look a little bit thinner. But I'm trying to stick to a diet, but it's not working out very well. I'm trying to reduce carbs, and I love carbs. That's the problem. The problem is I love carbs, so it's difficult to stick to the diet. Shave it off. Maybe I should shave it off. Yeah, it makes me actually look a bit younger if I shave it off as well. But it's good for hiding the chin. That's the thing. See, that's the thing. If anyone's wondering why men grow beards, is to cover the chin, is to hide the chin. That's the truth. No other reason. Okay. I want to move on to another story here. This is about this is from another YouTuber called No Justice, who I did a show with on the Sunday Roast many moons ago. But she talked here about something that's really interesting, something that I've talked about before when it comes to the media and political parties. Now she's going to focus here on Labour and say, look, what Labour have when it comes to communication or social media is pretty crap. So I'm not going to show you the whole video, but I just want to show you this first part, which is really interesting.
So one of the things that is going to be incredibly important if you're going to be a successful political party in 2025 and onwards is having a good social media strategy, knowing how to use social media, and of course which social media apps that you should try and use to be able to become popular is going to be where political campaigning is turning towards in the modern era, where people are abandoning mainstream media, people are getting their opinions from social media, right? You've got to find the best strategy to be able to get voters to warm to your political campaign, to try and build a coalition, to try and reach out to the very many undecided voters, right? Reform UK have been really good at getting out to undecided voters. They are the chief beneficiary of the voting patterns of people who didn't vote at the last election. They're mostly moving to Reform UK, some of them moving to the Greens, very few moving to the Lib Dems. So they're the prime beneficiaries. And I think that's where a lot of new politics is going to come from. It's going to come from the disenfranchised being convinced to vote, especially when the 2024 election had record low turnout in the modern era. One of the biggest platforms for reaching out to the population is going to be TikTok. So Nigel Farage is the most popular politician on TikTok, and he mostly posts videos of himself talking to a camera, explaining his things that he believes in, very matter-of-factly, very sincerely, trying to engage with the audience. The other kind of most popular...
Okay, before we continue, this is a very important point to remember. How does Nigel Farage communicate with people on social media? What's his modus operandi? How does he approach this? He films himself. He films himself walking around or in his office or something like that. Once again, I'm not a fan of Nigel Farage under any stretch of the imagination, but he's really good at using social media, and he films himself with a camera. This is the important point to take away from this so far.
The politician on TikTok is Zahra Sultana. Zahra Sultana is somebody who just mainly posts pictures of herself from Parliament, being polemic and trying to get that to appeal to voters as well, and indeed doing the similar kind of pieces to camera that Nigel Farage does. What about the Labour Party? What are the Labour Party doing on TikTok nowadays? I'll be interested to see what they're up to, because we already covered recently on this channel the idea that they've had social media strategists engaging with the party about trying to make their politicians into TikTok influencers, because they realise that actually young people are deserting the Labour Party, whereas they used to command 40, close to 50% of the Zoomer vote at the election. In opinion polls right now, they're in third place behind the Greens and the Liberal Democrats, and their support has more than halved. Right? And I'm interested to see why they're not connecting with young people and why they're perceived to no longer be supporting these people's interests. Now, of course, policy is one thing, but I'm going to at least say I think that their terrible social media strategy is at least partly to blame for this. So let's have a look, shall we? So first up, chat, we've got emoji-laden Bob the Builder clips with default text over the top, which... not particularly explanatory, kind of infantilizing, not really getting much traction, given they're a 200,000 follow TikTok account, and yet they're only getting 600 likes on something that was posted halfway through the day. So not great, it's not great. We have a picture of Southwest Railway post-nationalisation, and what they've done is they've taken the song Vroom Vroom by Charlie XCX that they have used over the top with the caption "Let's Ride," because of course what they're essentially trying to do is mimic the Kamala Harris brat iconography, which is again kind of patronizing.
And there we go, guys. It's time for me to get in bed. This has been fun.
We have a Gwyneth Paltrow meme mocking Nigel Farage.
It's like having a job working 24/7 for 2 days on the trot.
And now we've got TV clips being used as a meme to mock Nigel Farage again. We have if Nigel Farage was a YouTuber meme posts, literally just posting memes and saying Labour did a thing and I'm happy, here's a meme. We have fan edits of Keith Starmer. They're posting fan edits of Keith Starmer on TikTok, claiming he has aura. This is DEFCON 1, chat. This is DEFCON 1.
Okay. I'm not going to go any further, but what do you see there? In comparison, she didn't show a TikTok from Nigel Farage, but we know what he does. There's no interaction. There's no live footage. There's no people. Like their memes, their cartoons, their stuff like that. Why isn't somebody from Labour talking to the camera, saying, this is what we're going to do, this is what we want to achieve, this is our goal, this is how we want to improve the country. Talk to people. This is what you need. This is why TikTok has been so successful, is people are able to speak directly to cameras. A short clip saying, this is what I'm going to do. This is what you need when I upload a clip onto TikTok. I hardly ever use TikTok. I should use it more. But it's like on the YouTube Shorts. I'm in the frame. That's what it's about. Like I could film something else, but people wouldn't be interested in seeing that. They want to see my reaction to something or me pointing at something in a sort of ridiculous way. It's a bit cringy, I know, but this is what TikTok is all about. You need to be more engaging. You need to show somebody. I don't know if it's Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer could have I've said this before. Starmer should have maybe it wouldn't work, but he should at least try. Have a weekly podcast. A weekly podcast where he brings people on. People would listen to it, I think. Maybe not a huge amount, but it would show some sort of connection. He could bring members of the public or famous people on, or political commentators or something like that, and have a discussion with them. But and maybe there would be criticism of doing that. But Trump, look at what Trump is doing. These daily press conferences, these daily signing of the executive orders and stuff like this. So Trump understands the value of the media, the value of the attention of the media. And Labour, as I keep saying, if they want to hold on to power, they need to convince people that they're doing stuff. There's no point just doing stuff. You have to convince people that you're doing it and that the public are better off because of that. So Starmer could have something like a daily video on TikTok or something. Hey everyone, in an informal way, but it'd have to be natural. It can't be something staged, but it'd have to be something natural. Hi guys, just walking to the office, or hey guys, this is what we're going to do today. Let me know in the comments what you think. Something like that. But it's all old school. Oh, we need to. What do the young people like? They like memes. Okay, let's stick up memes there. This is the form of communication that they have. Of course they're falling behind. Because there's no incentive for people to watch it. Like if you know that the Prime Minister is going to put out a TikTok video at 10 o'clock every morning before he starts work or whatever, people are going to watch that to find out, okay, what is he talking about today? But it'd have to be something interesting. It can't be just, this is our policy on X, Y, and Z. No, it'd have to be, maybe we see it with Robert Jenrick. Robert Jenrick is actually very good at this. I hate Robert Jenrick. I despise the guy, but he's good at these videos. The one recently, where he's harassing people in the train station. I think it got something like 12 million views on Twitter. 12 million views. It's like music videos get 12 million views, not political videos. So if whoever's in charge of communications at Labour need to get their finger out and start doing something more intelligent. Batman. Yes. Brad, thanks so much for that super chat. If Starmer got off with his secretary, nobody would remember any of the bad policies again. After all, who remembers Bill Clinton's policies? It's a very valid point. Who is his secretary? That's an interesting question. Yeah, it would be a bit sort of a bit embarrassing. But yeah, it's a good point that was raised there by Brad, I think. Angela Rayner for Prime Minister. I think Angela Rayner will eventually be Prime Minister, yes. Okay. On the other end of this is Reform UK. Reform-linked think tank hires YouTube star in policy and PR push. Archie Manners, a comedian and online influencer, will play a leading role in the Centre for a Better Britain as Nigel Farage looks to build his policy agenda. Oh my goodness. So YouTube star has been hired by the think tank supportive of Reform UK as it looks to strengthen Nigel Farage's policy agenda, Sky News can reveal. Archie Manners, a comedian and magician who has performed high-profile pranks on celebrities and Just Stop Oil activists, has been hired through his own company by Resolute 1850, which is planning to change its name to the Centre for a Better Britain. It's understood the 32-year-old, whose YouTube channel with fellow influencer Josh Pieters amasses more than 1 million subscribers, will provide social media and communications advice. See, the evil guys are winning. The evil guys are winning. Look, I have given out advice, and I give free advice now. If you want to be successful on YouTube, there are two main things you need to do. You need to be consistent, and you need to be consistent. That's it. You have to be lucky, of course, as well, but you have to be consistent. And the brand has to be consistent, and the material has to be consistent. If you look at most YouTube channels for the Liberal Democrats or the Labour Party, it's like a sporadic video once a month or something like that pops up, and it's very artificial. And I actually don't know these YouTubers. I should know these YouTubers that were mentioned in the report there, but it doesn't really matter. They have a huge following. I think I remember one of them interviewing people on the street who was during a protest by Just Stop Oil, and he was extremely obnoxious. But then, being obnoxious on YouTube has its benefits. Know your audience and Reform do, yes. But this is a potential win for Reform, because they want to. The clips are not just designed for young people, but they're also designed for older people as well, because a lot of older people are not so much on YouTube or on TikTok, but they're on Facebook. And then if you're able to create the material for YouTube, you can just share it on Facebook as well. So they're going to cover their bases, and this costs nothing. Phil from A Different Bias has raised this point on a number of occasions. How is it possible that myself or someone like Phil has pretty much no budget, and you have political parties who have huge budgets and they're not able to produce material? Many different types of audience as well. Not bitey enough. And you have to be interesting. Yes, there are a number. Yeah, I sort of oversimplified it. But yeah, there are a number of different factors. You have to create interesting content. You have to be consistent. You have to play to your strengths as well, and it has to be authentic. It depends on the material you're putting out. Many people watch YouTube videos because they want to get advice on something. They associate the material with an expert. These are people watch them just for entertainment values. There's a whole range of issues that are covered, and a whole number of reasons why people watch stuff on social media. But when it comes to politics, you need to be able to connect with people. And of course, YouTubers have a great connection to their viewers, and they're able to connect to people in a way politicians can't. So I think we'll have to wait and see, but it seems like a pretty big win for Farage and for Reform. Farage, of course, is an old guy, and he's viewed as somebody who's disconnected from the youth. Irrespective of what Reform tried to sell, Reform are constantly trying to say, no, Nigel speaks the language of young people. He doesn't. Okay, you'll find young people who will promote Farage, but they are already on the far right generally. But when it comes to breaking into the market of young people, you need a bridge, and a famous YouTuber, somebody with a connection to young people, helps Reform in this way. And I swear to God, guys, they're pumping a huge amount of money into this. They're really going at this. They understand the value of social media. They understand the value of TikTok and YouTube, not like the other parties. The other parties are completely asleep at the wheel. Do you have to go to the shop in that hat? Yes, I do. It's an obligation. It's actually glued, so I'm not able to take it off. Experts like you, Max. That's why people like it. Well, I always say I'm not an expert. I always say, look, what the information I find is publicly available. So don't quote me on things. I'm not an expert. I just, I try to be as honest as possible. Sometimes I make mistakes, and I try to correct that if I can. My goal is to to be as honest as possible. This is why I have a big problem with people like Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson, because it's not just they're misinformed or they don't know what they're doing. They're actively lying. They know that they're misleading and misinforming the public. The only youths who speak to Farage are inbred. Well said, Brad. Mr. NF, Nigel Farage, or National Front, I was going to say, will be Prime Minister at the next general election. Look, Farage will be Prime Minister if Labour are not able to turn things around. If Labour are not able to improve the situation and show to the public that they've improved the situation for ordinary people, then yes, it's likely Farage. He may not be Prime Minister, but he could be part of a coalition government. A lot of people are writing the obituary, including myself sometimes, but a lot of people are writing the obituary of the Conservative Party. But I still think there's a chance for them to come back, but they need to change their leader. Kemi Badenoch is an absolute disaster. Pretty much anyone would be better than Kemi Badenoch. Maybe even Robert Jenrick, although he's extremely toxic, but I think he'd do a bit of a better job than Kemi Badenoch is just completely useless. Labour have no intention of doing that. What's the name of that style of hat? It's called a tricorn hat. It's from the 1700s. If you Google 1700s hats, you'll be able to see it. So sometimes they'd have a bow here, a ribbon here, or they came in different styles. They had this is an actual leather hat. This was made for me by wonderful people who support the channel. Minuteman hat, yes. Anyway, guys, let's move on to our next story. So reform, give it, but reform also take it away. So I just want to show you this quick clip from, I think it's a reform councillor. Let's see what he had to say.
Well, people do things for free. Lots of people go out there and do work for nothing. So is
it pro bono? Just answer me that.
No, it's for free.
So what he's talking about, of course, is this idea that Reform UK are taking on all these experts, tech bros, to run their Doge department, which is going to be an absolute disaster. So for anyone who doesn't know, UK politics, particularly those on the right, like to copy and paste stuff from America. Culture wars, Donald Trump antics, and of course what Elon Musk was doing when it comes to Doge, so the Department of Government Efficiency, which was not really about government efficiency. It was just about cutting public services, imposing austerity, basically. So imposing austerity and then making sure that there was money available to fund the richest in society. Because remember, rich people are always looking out for more money. It's the one thing you can be guaranteed to know about rich people is they want more money. And as long as there are politicians who are corrupt and politicians who also like to have more money, then of course those people are going to be satisfied. So what Elon Musk has been doing in the US is of course cutting public services, fired supposed 300 employees from the nuclear safety body, and then realized, we shouldn't actually fire these people. That was a mistake. Let's hire them all back again. They've been laying off people from other government departments. They've cut funding for different government departments, and recently, not directly related to Doge, but connected to Doge, the new big beautiful bill, which is going to cut about $700 billion from Medicaid. I think there was another story of the guy who was it, RFK Jr., who's now the Secretary for Health in the US. He wants to end all funding for, I don't remember what treatment. There was a treatment he wants to do. He wants to end funding for that treatment. He wants to ban certain research, cancer research or something, and say, well, we just, I don't know, treat cancer or whatever with, I don't know, lemon juice or something like that. Brainworm, yeah, that guy. Anyway, It's not pro bono. It's for free. So back to the clip of our Reform UK friend. So what Reform has said is that what they're going to do is they're going to bring in their own Doge, and the guys who are doing autism, I believe, Max. Okay. We're going to do is we're going to bring in our own version of Doge, and it's going to be run for free. People doing it are going to do it for free. So I've covered this already, but just for anyone who hasn't seen it, or maybe the video's tomorrow. If somebody's doing it for free, there are a number of reasons why they would do that. Maybe because they truly believe in saving the government money and they don't need the money themselves, so they'll do it for free, like volunteers. Okay, that's a possibility. And look, if they find no savings in councils, well, it's not a big problem because they haven't been paid to do anything. So, but I don't think that's the goal there, because Reform UK want to show that they've saved some money for councils. So why these people will be doing it for free, it's probably more likely that these people are sycophants of Nigel Farage and Reform, or they're being paid in other ways. Okay, so they're not getting paid by the council, but maybe they're being given, I don't know, money in some other form. This is all speculation. We don't know, but crafty wee contracts in kind, probably yes. Yeah, we won't pay you for this, but whatever implementation, whatever procedure has to be implemented, well, we'll need somebody to do it. And hey, you happen to have a lot of experience. How about we give this contract to your company? So I think what we're going to see with Reform UK in charge is immense amounts of corruption, like in the United States with Donald Trump. Donald Trump receiving a $400 million plane because the Arabs wanted to give him that. There's no strings no strings attached. And it was wonderful, the excuse that one of his ministers or secretaries of state said, it's for the American people. It's not for the American people, it's for Donald friggin' Trump. And he tried to compare it to the Statue of Liberty given to the United States by the French. Yeah, but that was to the American people. It wasn't like it's for Donald Trump to park it, in his to be built on his lawn or something like that, and anyone who wants to come in would have to pay a ticket to Donald Trump to access it, to climb up the tower or whatever. So it's not for the American people, it's for Donald Trump. And I think what Reform UK want to do is have something similar. So I've seen this before. I remember many years ago in Venice. Remember Nigel Farage was in Venice recently. He wasn't in Clacton, he was in Venice. Well, actually not Venice, it was Las Vegas. It was a copy of Venice in Las Vegas. But I remember a story many years ago here in Venice. I live near Venice, for anyone who doesn't know. There was a story of a contract was produced for a canal cleaning. So a company to clean the canal. A canal needed to be cleaned, and they needed a company to do this. But there was no company available to clean the canal. So someone in the council or the local authority decided to set up a company to clean the canal. And do you know who won the contract to clean the canal? By coincidence, it was the guy's company who was just set up in order to clean the canal, and he won the contract. Not sure how much the contract was for, but this is exactly what we're going to see with Nigel Farage. Farage, the Reform UK run a council. Some work needs to be done. For example, they're talking a lot about potholes. The pothole contracts, they're not very good for the taxpayer. So what we need to do is we need to renew these contracts and find better suppliers. So wants to stop somebody from making a donation to Reform UK and then coincidentally winning the contract to fill the potholes. And of course, if Reform UK is in charge, they can say, well, potholes are expensive to fix, okay? In the past, it would cost maybe £2 or whatever to fix a pothole, each pothole. Well, weather conditions and inflation and all of this. And now it's like £10 per pothole. But that's money well spent because we're hiring a company who is dedicated, is professional, and has donated to Reform UK. And, this is the type of company to do this. This is what we're going to see. I can guarantee it. Maybe not exactly the example that I've given, but we're going to see something like this. Because we saw it before. We saw it with the Conservatives. What happened during the pandemic? People were setting up companies, like not to produce PPE, not even to produce, to sell PPE. People were setting up companies where they would go then to China or order from China PPE, and they would sell it to the NHS and make a huge amount of money. The Tories were giving them contracts. Companies that had 2 or 3 employees that had been set up the day before or a few days before were given contracts worth millions of pounds. One Angry Pagan, thank you for that comment. The repercussions of climate change and the need to work on adaptation and mitigation now outweighs all of this. This is the mark for me for Labour. I'm really concerned about the pushback against net zero. I feel like I'm the only person who's saying, who's defending it almost, because I'm saying, like, there's so many benefits when it comes to net zero. It creates jobs, it's protecting the environment, and then of course it's saving money for people when it comes to insulating homes and reducing energy prices, the cost of energy. It's the way to go. And what we're hearing is from the Tories, of course, attacking it, Reform UK attacking it, but also there's a sort of reluctance, it seems, from Labour to stand up and talk about the values of net zero. Just, well, we have to do it. No, that's not enough. It needs to be promoted better. And I feel sorry for the minister, what's his name? Former Labour leader, Miliband. I feel sorry for Miliband because he's demonized by the media, especially the right-wing media. And of course, the right-wing media want to continue the use of fossil fuels because they're connected, because they receive their funding from the fossil fuel sector. Brad, thank you so much for that. Over the canal cleaning. No, Farage was there giving Trump cleansing. I don't want to know how he did it. Only Brad could go there. Isn't that true, guys? Isn't that only Brad could go there? What's happening with Farage's Bitcoin money given to him? Nobody knows. Nobody knows where that money is going. Isn't that wonderful? Farage a year ago was talking about, we need to protect cash. Cash is king. We need to move away from a cashless society. And then within 12 months, he's talking about, Reform are going to take donations in the form of Bitcoin because Bitcoin can't be traced. Isn't that a coincidence? Reform UK are saying we're open for business when it comes to Bitcoin. And remember that Bitcoin can't be traced. Okay. So... Yeah, but the biggest surprise for me is that there are people who still support Nigel Farage. Farage would say, "I'm anti." Farage could be convinced that net zero is a wonderful thing if he received more donations from the renewable energy sector. So that's all that needs to happen. If the renewable energy sector said, "Hey, Reform UK, here's a few £1 million, promote net zero," they'd be like this to this. They would, very next day, would be saying, "Oh, net zero is actually a wonderful thing. We actually need to protect the environment." And then you would have GB News doing exactly the same thing. GB News would wipe all of their climate skeptic, climate change denial rubbish. And then they would start talking about how nuclear, well, not even maybe nuclear, but renewable energy, wind turbines are so beautiful. Actually, the farmland is to waste. We need to put solar panels on it. All of this is what you would hear because they have no principles, unless the principle is just to make money. Trade and jobs. More export trade equals jobs. More jobs equals more tax revenue and less unemployment, welfare supports. Should be on a wanted poster, not prime minister. Yes. Isn't it funny how the Reform UK keep talking about how Keir Starmer is a dictator, but Keir Starmer has never called for Nigel Farage to be put in prison, even though he's done extreme damage to the UK, but no. And some of the things he's been doing, for example, recently in Scotland. Guys, we're about halfway through the stream, so I just want to take a short comedy moment, and then we'll be back in just a jiffy with more serious stuff. So I hope you enjoy this. Let me bring it up here.
Kristi Noem Noem was testifying in Congress today about whether her administration is deporting people without habeas corpus, which is their right to due process. If you didn't know what habeas corpus was, don't worry. Kristi Noem didn't Google it either.
What is habeas corpus?
Well, habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to be able to remove people from this country and suspend their right to...
Let me stop you, ma'am. Habeas corpus, excuse me, that's incorrect.
Okay, look, if Kristi Noem was just a random person on the street, I get it. If she was like, habeas corpus, that's a Harry Potter spell, right? Like, makes you invisible. But the Secretary of Homeland Security should know that habeas corpus prevents the president from deporting you without due process. Not that it lets the president deport you without due process. That's the opposite of what it means. And I didn't know you could have dyslexia for laws. Either way, Noem whiffed hard on that question. But unfortunately for her, the quiz was just beginning.
Do you know what section of the Constitution the suspension clause of habeas corpus is in?
I do not. No.
Do you know which article it is in?
No, I do not, sir.
Okay, well, it is in Article 1.
It was in 1. It was the first. You didn't even read the first one. So can you stop? We get it, okay? Stop asking her harder questions. Like, how would senators like it if Kristi Noem asked you questions that she was an expert in, huh? Hey, Senator Kim, do you know how to trick a puppy into walking into an open grave? No, not so smart now, are you? Anyway, Kristi Noem, you still don't know the basics of American law, so I'm sorry to say, we're gonna have to take you out of USA. But
oh my goodness! These are the head of national.
Inexcusable.
One moment. The head of Homeland Security doesn't understand the Constitution whatsoever. Oh my goodness! And these are the people that Donald Trump, Nigel Farage, and certain members of the Conservative Party admire. Anyway, guys, let's move on. So, sticking with immigration because it's what Donald Trump only cares about. Nick Ferrari is a piece of work. Let's have a listen to Nick Ferrari.
Shambolic failure. That's all you can say about the government's attempt to try and stop those illegal crossings.
They're not illegal. I keep making this point. Doesn't seem to get through. You know, maybe it's a bit hard-headed. It's not illegal to cross the channel to claim asylum.
Remember how idiotically Rishi Sunak said he would stop the boats? That was never going to happen. And Labour, understandably, reaped a lot of support by highlighting that insanity. Well, now they stand accused of actually managing to get it almost worse in just the, 11 months or so they've been in, with a senior member of the government, the Defence Secretary, admitting we have lost control, or Britain's lost control of its borders.
He was talking about up until now.
Briefly, those numbers again: 1,194 crossed the Channel in one day in 18 boats. It was effectively a taxi service. It makes it one of the worst days for illegal crossings ever, the 5th highest in a single day in history. But here's another number for you. Landings are up some 42% from 12.
So what should we do? Like, you keep hearing from the likes of Nick Ferrari. Nick Ferrari is paid about £40,000 a month. Isn't it money well spent? He just regurgitates the same talking points all over and over and over again. It's terrible. Oh, why isn't the government stopping these illegal migrants? Is he presenting himself for a future on GB News or something? Although LBC is looking more and more like GB News all the time.
12 months ago. Do you remember the insanity? We're going to smash the gangs. We've got a new border force. If in doubt, set up a squad, and it has achieved nothing. I don't know whether the Rwanda scheme would have worked. We'll never know whether the Rwanda scheme would have worked. But it seemed to be dumped in an act of political spite.
It wasn't going to work because it was unlawful. Does Nick Ferrari know what unlawful means? Maybe a bit like the head of Homeland Security in the US doesn't seem to understand what unlawful means. Rwanda was not going to work because Rwanda is not a safe country. It was not the ECHR or even Rwanda that was stopping asylum seekers going there. It was the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said that Rwanda is not safe. Even if the British government said, we've actually made it lawful that it's safe, but that doesn't work. So what does Nick Ferrari hope to achieve by any of this? Is it like, okay, I have nothing to talk about today, so I'll talk about immigration? Like, people like him do not present an alternative, do not say, okay, this is the solution. And we know what the solution is. Create a safe route or process the asylum claims in France. Set up a processing centre in France. The French have already said a number of times, yes, we'd be willing to do that. Because these people are a problem for us. This is the French talking. We don't want these people here. They're living in tents. They don't want to claim asylum here. We can't put them in accommodation because they don't want to stay here. The police can do very little about it, because as soon as they're in the water under French law, they're not supposed to intervene. And rightly so, because who wants to be trying to pull people out of a dinghy when they're trying to get into a dinghy? You know, trying to separate members of a family who are getting in a dinghy. For what purpose? So that they'll stay on French territory for another day, and then the next day they'll try and get on a dinghy again to cross the channel. Like, the whole rhetoric around this is nonsensical. No, it's literally nonsensical, because you have people saying, well, why don't the French do more? Do more what? The people don't want to stay in France. They want to get to the UK. Well, we should force them back. Force them back for what goal? What's the point in forcing them back? They'll just get on another dinghy. We keep hearing about how it's a tragedy when people lose their lives in the Channel. But the way to stop people from losing their lives is to create a safe route, or to process the asylum claims in France. So nobody needs to cross the Channel. But there's also another point that Zoe Gardner has raised on a number of occasions. It's how, because the so-called legal route is more and more difficult now, people are relying on the irregular route. So you're going to have more and more people. You're going to see more and more people cross the Channel. No one's talking about this. They keep saying, oh, the numbers are going up. Why are the numbers going up? Is it because of the weather? Is it because Labour are weak? Is it because Border Force are not doing their job? Is it because of how they're crossing the Channel? In some ways, it's because, in a significant way actually, it's because the safe route, the visa route, the regular route, is more difficult. And these people still want to come to the UK. So some people who could have come in with a visa a year ago cannot now. So if they want to still get to the UK, they're going to say, look, I'll cross and claim asylum. Or get across the sea and then just abscond. I'm angrier than one angry pagan. I am tonight. Ferrari can't admit that it's really a circumstance of Brexit. No, he's of course a Brexit supporter, so he said, but Brexit wasn't implemented correctly. His Brexit went to another school. Remember that one. So yeah, I'm not going to I'm not going to inflict too much of this guy on you. But I want to move on to another story here, because this is something that was brought up on Discord, which I think is really important to talk about. DWP told grieving mom to get a job after 33-year-old disabled daughter's death. I just want to tell people this is just want to warn people in advance before I get into reading this. This is a tragedy. Tracy Hollywood, 54-year-old mother from Harold Green, has been left devastated after the DWP told her to simply get a job in the wake of her daughter Stacey's tragic passing. For 33 years, Tracy devoted herself to caring for Stacey, who suffered catastrophic health issues stemming from a cardiac arrest shortly after her birth. This situation has raised pressing questions about how the DWP's handling of bereavement and the support provided to grieving parents. As the Manchester Evening News reported, Tracy's ordeal began when Stacey, initially a perfectly healthy baby, experienced a severe decline due to a medical mishap resulting in spastic quadropia and a host of related conditions. As Tracy navigated the complexities of caring for her daughter, she was thrust into a prolonged legal battle over medical negligence, which only added to the burden. Despite eventually securing a settlement, Tracy now finds herself at a crossroad, unable to provide for her family after the death of her child. With no recent work history or qualifications stemming from decades devoted to caregiving, her prospects of re-entering the job market seem bleak. The DWP, in the words of Tracy, when a spouse passes away, you get a bereavement payment. With a child, you don't. It's just sign on, look for a job, she told Manchester Evening News. I've been a full-time carer for more than 33 years with my daughter. I haven't got any work history, and it's made me feel like I'm going a bit crazy. I'm sitting in the house I'm having to sell because I can't afford to live here. I'm angry. You do all that caring for years because it's your child, but you're also saving the NHS thousands of pounds by doing so, which is true. I cannot afford to do anything until the house is sold and get the money from that. That means I'm going to be homeless for a while. The DWP responded to her dire circumstances, saying it always provides the best possible support to those who need it. The DWP's best possible support, it says, is paying carer allowance for several weeks after the carer role ends. I've been saying for some time how the DWP needs to be reformed. This idea that people just need to go and get a job. I've been saying how, especially carers, they don't have the work experience. They've been looking after someone, a member of their family, for so long. They don't have they don't have the work experience that they can offer a company. But as I said, when it comes to also the job centers, people are going in and they're being told, okay, you have to do this and that. You have to show that you have to demonstrate that you're not able to work in order to remain on some sort of support, instead of actually providing support for people to get into work if they can. And if they can't, then that's the way things are. But there's a decision-making process at the very top, which is, okay, we need to force people off benefits or entitlements, as I prefer to call them, off entitlements and into jobs. And we have a threshold we have to meet, or we have a quota we have to fill. And if we don't do it, then somebody's going to get punished. So the driving force is not to support people in a real humane way. It's to support people into a job, even if those jobs are not feasible, even if those jobs don't pay enough. Unclaimed entitlements is never mentioned. Well said, Suzanne. We had recently the Secretary of State for the DWP saying she was angry that people are not being able to reach their full potential, and how much. And she was angry about people gaming the system, but not angry about how many people have not claimed their entitlements. Billions of pounds is currently unclaimed because people don't know the process, or people have not been shown the process. People have to jump through hoops in order to get a little bit of money. And even if they do, it's maybe they've missed a step, or they forgot to include something, or they didn't know they could claim a certain entitlement. Like, it's not the case that, what it should be, and I keep saying this, is what it should be happening is you go to the job centre, you go to the DWP, and they sit down with you and say, okay, what can we do to help? How can we maximize your entitlements? That's the way it should be, because they're entitlements. They're things that people are entitled to. But instead, it's the opposite. It's like, how can we deny people as many entitlements as possible? How can we trick people, or maybe not trick, but force people into doing jobs? Because that's the goal, is to get people off benefits, because a number has to be reached in order for that manager to give it to their manager, and that manager to give it to their manager, and that manager gives it to the Secretary of State. And then the Secretary of State says, that's a good number. Okay, keep going. But we want it lower next month. She's not angry with the rich are not paying their fair share of taxes. Rob says, hi, brilliant video on the proposed cuts by Reform. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, it's. I think it's going to be cutting stuff. And like when they said about potholes, they were saying in the video about potholes, it's like 1%, less than 1% of money goes on potholes. But it's something they can say, oh, look, we fixed the potholes. And Amazon will get a kickback for taking on the worker. That's a very valid point, Kate, yes. Because they don't want to be shamed, as they frequently are. They stopped my ESA between December and February one time. They said I hadn't told them I'd moved on. I'd moved. I had, wankers. Sorry, I didn't see the comment correctly. Universal Credit staffers don't read their manuals too. They tell the public that they can't help when it's right that they're in their book that they can. Is it a problem with training? Is it a problem with the support for the staff? There's a general feeling, I don't know whether, and some people have told me about this, the people who have gone through the disaster of the DWP have said, look, it's a mentality within the DWP that you have to be aggressive. You have to view everyone as a skiver. Sorry, as a sponger. Somebody who's you have to view everyone as a criminal, and they have to, you're guilty until proven innocent when you go into the DWP. So this seems to be the mentality that everyone coming in is some sort of individual who just wants to game the system, who doesn't want to play fair, who's not really sick but is pretending in order to get some sort of benefit. Will there be people like that? Yes, of course, but they're in all walks of life. No one's going to say that these people don't exist, but they're the minority because the system is designed to work against people. It's more difficult to game the system when the system is designed not to help people. It's not designed to help people. It's designed to punish people. It's designed to force people into jobs that they generally can't do. Because the goal is to bring down the numbers. It's a bit like what Reform are going to do when they get into, when they get their feet under the table with the councils. They will say, we need to cut stuff. What can we cut? Well, there's nothing really we can cut. Then let's pretend to cut stuff, or let's cut stuff that we can show as a cut but isn't really a cut or is not actually going to help anyone. It's just we have to show something, not that it's actually beneficial. DWP staff have to meet targets, sanctions, and moving people into working off UC. Why? Why is that? Because the government minister wants to see the numbers come down so that they can stand in Parliament and say, unemployment numbers are down. The number of people on benefits is down. That seems to be the goal. It starts at the top. It's an arbitrary number. It's just for a politician to grandstand. But there are people's lives being impacted by this. There are real consequences for a politician who just wants to have a number that they can wave in front of the opposition or to wave in front of other politicians in Parliament. These are arbitrary numbers. And we know that more and more people need to rely on support from the state, need to rely on benefits or entitlements because of health issues, because the NHS isn't working, and because jobs are becoming more and more scarce, especially jobs that are paying any sort of decent wages or providing any sort of decent conditions. More and more young people are not joining a workforce that has actually long-term prospects. More and more young people are doing jobs in the gig economy, which is not something long-term. Human beings reduced to statistics, yes. A UBI is the way to go, well said, Calvin Ladd. Anyway, let's move on. I don't want to stay on this too much. I think I wanted to show you this video where a minister from Israel was interviewed about Gaza, and it was quite telling. Let me bring up the clip.
Now, authorities in Gaza say that Israeli forces have fired on people as they were making their way towards an aid distribution site in Rafah, killing 27. The IDF says its troops fired on a group that posed a threat and had refused to retreat when warned to do so. Well, this is the third day of similar shootings after an Israeli and US-backed foundation established aid distribution points inside Israeli military zones, a system it says is designed to circumvent Hamas and stop them from stealing aid. The United Nations says this new system doesn't address Gaza's huge hunger crisis and allows Israel to use aid as a weapon. I'm pleased to say we can now speak to David Menzer, the Israeli government spokesperson. David, thank you for making the time to speak to us today. It's always good to speak to you. This situation, most recently in Gaza, 27 people said to have died. An investigation has been launched. It said that there was a threat. Can you tell us what that threat was?
Good to be with you. Let me just tell you first on the Sunday incident, it's very important to understand that we've already released footage showing Hamas gunmen themselves shooting at their own people. Why do they do that? Because they're trying to hold on to this last grip of power, this last grip which they have over the...
Okay. A few questions before we continue. So you're claiming that the people, you have footage of Hamas gunmen shooting at people. But why did you not engage those individuals? Like, you have a military. you ended up, it seems shots were fired. You're saying that it wasn't your side that shot these individuals. We're going to get into a bit more detail in a moment, but you're claiming that you did not shoot these individuals. They were shot by Hamas gunmen. But how come you didn't take out those Hamas gunmen? You have forces right next to you. These people had arrived from less than a kilometer away, and gunfire ensued. You're saying it's nothing to do with you. You're saying it's all on the Hamas side. You have footage of this. Then why didn't you take out these gunmen? How is it possible that gunmen were acting so close to your forces and your forces didn't engage these gunmen? Something very dodgy about this.
Hamas has over the people of Gaza, that of aid. Now, this aid should have been provided to Gazans people free. They have been charging, Hamas have been charging for this aid, extortionate prices.
But see, the thing is, we don't know any of this. Like, we have to go on his word, because his government won't allow journalists into Gaza. See, what you constantly hear is, well, you can't trust the government in Gaza. It's run by Hamas. Okay, if that's true, then why don't you allow journalists in so that they can investigate whether Hamas is doing all of these things? Because what we're hearing is, well, you need to trust the IDF. But why should we trust the IDF if the IDF have lied in the past? It's not like you were misinformed, but it's been clear that you have lied in the past. So we have somebody who has lied in the past. Then we have Hamas, who will probably lie as well. But that's why you need an independent media to go in there to investigate and understand what exactly happened. But until people are allowed into Gaza, and they can't get into Gaza, not because of Hamas, but because the IDF would not allow them in. They allow in certain doctors, they will allow in certain staff, but journalists are not permitted entry.
Why do they do that? They use the funds to recruit new terrorists and pay their existing terrorist fighters, but no more. The new Gaza Aid Foundation is specifically designed to take Hamas out of the equation, to provide boxes of food for Gazan families rather than sacks of flour, which are of no use to a family. A box of food for a week, which we're handing out. We've handed out millions and millions already to get Gazans people fed and removing Hamas from the equation.
Now, David, as you all know, that video is being disputed. Some online OS experts, people who were able to assess these kinds of videos, say that it is misleading and it may not actually be the position where the Israelis say that it is. That's the Sunday incident, and that was where 30 people were killed. I'm asking you specifically about the Monday incident, the one that we're reporting on now, and the 27 that were killed. The IDF have put out a statement saying that there was a threat. What was the threat as these people were walking towards this aid distribution site?
Well, I'll tell you very, very clearly. It was actually this morning, Tuesday, as crowds were moving along the designated routes towards a humanitarian aid distribution point in northern Gaza, our soldiers identified several individuals who moved away from the crowd, from the approved access route. Again, we're trying to get as many people as we can to give access to this food. They moved away, and this occurred about a kilometre away from the aid distribution site. Now, the Israeli army, they issued warning shots in the air, and still some of these suspects continued to advance towards the troops in a threatening manner. Still, further fire was directed close to them, but not to them, but they continued their advance. So we know very well about this report, but I must tell you again that we have released verifiable footage.
How is it verifiable? How is it verifiable? It's not verifiable because it's released by your state.
Hamas gunmen themselves firing at Gaza.
David, yes, but the footage that you just alluded to from the incident on Sunday is disputed. It was not of the Gaza Health Foundation. Humanitarian Foundation site.
No, I don't agree.
Of course it's disputed. You can't say it's not disputed. People are disputing it.
I agree with you. I don't think it's disputed at all. It's probably disputed by people that want Hamas to retain control of aid distribution. But we're not going to have that anymore because that is their last vestiges of control.
Let's talk about this incident on Tuesday. Okay, David, let's talk about this incident on Tuesday. 27 people killed. You say there was a threat. Did they have weapons?
Well, you'll have to ask the IDF for the specifics points about that.
I'm asking you. You're here to speak.
Right, and I'll tell you that the IDF is not preventing the arrival of Gazans at humanitarian sites.
That was not my question, David, as you well know. Did they have weapons, David?
It's precisely the opposite. We are encouraging it. Now, the warning shots were fired away from the aid distribution point in response to the threat perceived by IDF troops. Now, we are facilitating, using this independent operation of this NGO, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, specifically precisely to ensure that aid reaches civilians and not Hamas. Yeah. There have been many, many occasions of Hamas lying to international media, and unfortunately, international media repeating those lies, and that very often leads to dead.
We're not repeating any lies, David. I'm putting the questions to you, and as you well know, in recent weeks we have spoken to Hamas about this. This 27 that were killed, 3 children were killed, 2 women. Were they a threat as well?
Again, every bit of news which comes out of Hamas, of Gaza, is controlled by the terrorist organization. There have been many, I can read you a whole list.
So we can't be trusted is what you're saying?
No, I'm not. I'm saying that you need to verify. Do your jobs, media.
Love to, David,
we are not preventing Gazans from accessing
as you know, David, and as
aid.
you and I have spoken about before, we would love to verify this, but international journalists are not allowed into Gaza, are they? Why not?
Well, I'll tell you very, very clearly what the reason is for that. Our priority is getting our hostages out.
Jesus Christ. It's like, you're supposed to verify. You're supposed to verify. Verify. That's your job. Okay, can we verify? No, you're not allowed to verify. Because we control whether you can go into Gaza or not. You have to get our permission to get into Gaza. And we're saying no, but at the same time, I'm demanding that you verify. It's ridiculous. It's beyond ridiculous. You can't say that the media is lying to the public by reporting what Hamas is saying, because you're not allowing them to go in to verify whether what Hamas is saying is true or false. I'm not picking a side here, but if you're saying your position is verify, okay, can I? No, you're not allowed to verify. But then you don't get to criticize the media. The media will have to report on what's given to them. You report that your forces didn't attack these people, although people were attacked. Then now you're saying, well, Hamas is going to lie to you. But how can we trust you if you're not allowing people in? If you allowed people in, they could verify. But of course you don't want that because it might look bad. Brad, thanks so much for that super chat. What's the difference between Netanyahu and herpes? One is rather unpleasant and has a matter, and not matter what you doesn't go away. The other is an STI. Well, not sorry. And now I didn't read the comment correctly. Thanks for that, but I understand the joke. Thanks for that. David Mercer is the guy. Horrible individual. Like there's no like he's criticizing the media for not verifying the report, but he's not allowing the media to verify the report. Anyway, guys, let's move on. We're almost at the end of the stream, so I want to cover one final story before we finish, because this one is very good, and this should lift your spirits, because this is a Scot who's angry, but not in a bad way, in a good way. So maybe you've already heard this, but have a listen.
Raymond is in Falkirk. Raymond, what would you like to say?
Good morning, Mr. O'Brien, sir. How are you?
I'm very well. What's on your mind?
Well, just basically, the question is, the first question about the Tories, they're completely gone kaput, finished. I spoke to your colleague on the phone just 5 minutes ago to say that just apart from my personal feelings, how I feel about it all, factual things, the bookmakers, who at this stage just now quoting prices for the next election, which could be 4 years, unless something desperate happens. Right now at the moment, joint favourites are Reform and Labour to be successful. Right now, you can have a minimum 4-1, the Conservatives to win. There was as much chance as winning of me being in the moon at 3 o'clock this afternoon. They are gone, finished, forever. Forever. All the people, and I'm speaking from people not just being Scottish mentality and blinkered.
Where the Tories have not been in power for generations, of course. We have to
I understand, yes, but I'm trying to make this subtle point, Mr. O'Brien, please.
Call me James.
Please. James, I'll call you James, but I get so angry and frustrated.
I can tell.
And my blood pressure goes through the roof,
why,
Mr.
Raymond?
O'Brien.
On this subject, why?
I'll tell you why.
I'm listening.
I'm an old man of 80. I've seen lots of things go down the years. And let's be honest about it. The state what we're in right now, society, I'm looking at it all. The standards of everything I appreciate and respect has completely sank through the roof. I'm looking at idiots that are supposedly, you've got your let's be honest about it. Take the Tories right now. In the United Kingdom, the thing that's waiting, that's looming on the horizon, is a poisonous guy called Nigel Farage with his Reform idiot. Have a look. Lee Anderson, Richard Tice, do me a favour. This is bonkers case. This is nonsense.
I was hoping
Mr. O'Brien,
I'm trying to calm you down, but I don't think I can. I think I agree with you, actually. But I worry about your blood pressure. I'm not being patronising. Right, I am listening.
Please,
I am.
If I go into a local Witherspoons pub and they're all over the place, I can get an idiotic statement. Willie knows what he's talking about, and Farage is the guy, and Donald Trump. I am listening to, there's people, senior people in Carstairs, which is it's an institution for mentally deranged people.
Be a bit careful. I mean, I do genuinely. I don't know if I can say calm down to you. That might make things worse. But there's
I can't calm down.
Well, you have to calm down, Mr. Raymond. Seriously, this is becoming a medical issue rather than a political one.
Now you're telling me.
I am. I might agree. I might agree with everything you say.
You're telling me. I've got a wonderful sense of humour, but it's running short.
Well, you and me both, Raymond. You and me both. So why have the Tories?
Why.
Yes, I'll be quiet for a while.
I'll tell you why.
Yes.
Because they are completely shot. Let's just take this area. I'm not trying to make it Scotland, England, please, but just for a second. In Scotland, all we have up here. Look, I'm trying to be as quick as I can. And
no, you fill your boots. Seriously, I'm not going to say goodbye to you until you feel that you've said all your bit. Your spleen is vented, Raymond.
You could finish at 2 o'clock tomorrow. What I'm trying to say is, just for one example, up here we have Celtic Rangers and its religious thing.
Yes.
The majority of the Rangers supporters are Tories. Now the Tories are going nowhere, and the only place they can go, this is only one area, small area up here. They're now joining Reform, and they're singing the praises. And it's like a part of a Scottish whatever cult. And down south in England, this is my main point. Who have we got? We have the Tommy Robinsons, the Paul Goldings. We have GB News. We have all these idiots as presenters. This is no longer the Daily Mail and the Daily Express. We have got GB News, and we had Talk TV. Look at the idiots that are presenters. They're all ex-UKIP. They're all ex-Labour. We had Jonathan Gullis has now got his own programme. Jonathan Gullis.
No, he doesn't.
I'll have to stop there because it goes on for a bit. But Raymond, I really hope I hope Raymond is watching the stream. He's done a wonderful job there. He should have his own podcast. He should have his own channel. He's completely correct. You know what's happening with. Well, there was a time when there were somewhat decent Tories, somewhat decent media, but it's gone completely down the toilet. And he's afraid for Scotland that, you know, Scotland will not be immune. The Rangers fans are going to switch from the Tories to Reform, and there is a real worry for Scotland as well. No place is immune from stupidity, it seems. So, guys, we're almost at the end. I just want to cover one final video before we go for the comedy video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to put it on in a moment. So I want to say thanks to everyone who came on tonight. Thank you so much for your super chats and those. Thanks for your support by smashing the like button. Thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job as always. And I hope you enjoy this video before we go.
Welcome to Broken News. Plans have been unveiled for an international competition which will decide on one billionaire to be killed and eaten on live TV. The new show is aimed at teaching the others a lesson, and our reporter has more.
For too long now, an extremely small number of hilariously rich people have been plundering natural resources, hoarding unimaginable wealth, and getting fat off the backs of billions of working people. Well, now working people might be living off the fat backs of billionaires, as one of them is set to be killed and eaten. Yes, in a new game show, one of these tasty tycoons will be sacrificed as a warning to the others from humanity. In the glitzy new programme, a public vote will decide which of the parasitic Uber class is to face a righteous roasting by the rest of us. If the pilot is a success, future episodes will see more of the super rich cooked into popular dishes. Some suggested by the producers include billionaire shortbread, a Michael Bloomberger, Charles coq au vin, mushroom risotto, mixed grill gates, and a Mukesh Ambani biryani. But we think that last one might be a bit racist. Some Broken News viewers have been in touch to suggest that this report is just a tired excuse to get a load of terrible billionaire food puns into a sketch, but it's actually making a very serious point indeed. A Warren Buffet. That's one, isn't it? Back to you.
A very serious message indeed. Oh, baked Bezos on toast. Is that a What a lovely story. That's all from Broken News. You're up to date.
So guys, have a great week. I'll see you on Friday, same bad time, same bad channel. Stay safe, take care, and good night.